Octopus has many tentacles, and the octopus is now being drawn into the light, and more people are seeing it for what it really is. Okay, we'll be right back with Clif High in just a couple minutes. The website is halfpasthuman.com, and I'm Jeff Rense. Glad you're along tonight. Okay, back with Clif High, talking about his work at halfpasthuman.com with George Ure and what we see. So you're willing to go out around, you figure 18 months, 18, 19 months is about it, then things start to...
Then we get into an issue of the relative strength of the numbers we've assigned.
Right.
We did this in an arbitrary fashion, and there's thousands upon thousands of words, and we have to translate into different languages and so on.
Sure.
So our longer-term variables are good up to a certain point, and thereafter I just don't trust them. So none of our forecasts extend much beyond that. We do get a larger, broader, more vague picture, but probably it has to be categorized as a possibility rather than a probability. A possibility with perhaps some level of small probabilities within it. So we get a view that says, for instance, that funding sources are going to start drying up for the powers that be. And beyond that, I mean, it's at that vague level that we're getting that kind of information.
Funding sources, they don't have, they're out of bullets, Cliff. They don't have any more funds. All they can do is make it. It's money that never existed, doesn't exist, and never will exist.
Okay, but we also have to look at, we look at things from a slightly different viewpoint in terms of economic and so on, because we're looking at archetypes, right? And so our archetypes that are really related to the economic are under a subcategory of a context that ultimately goes all the way up to another context that we have labeled as power. So there's two ways to look at the economy. Most of our economy is entirely abstraction. And then there's the idea of a calorie-based economy, which would be like the Amish farming, right? You put in some calories into putting the seeds into the ground, and you receive more calories than you put in, and you've made a, quote, profit. Everything else beyond that is a certain amount of abstraction. So the abstraction layers are starting to fall apart because they're all supported by lines. But the basis of the abstractions at this point are still quasi-functional in the sense that they're providing a flow of power in the sense of the number of people that still take their worthless Federal Reserve notes and contribute to the tax of this, from the state, etc. And until that actually shifts, the power elite or the political class that we have won't really be removed. There's very little difference in, if you change reality ever so slightly, for instance, a person with $300 million is no better off than an individual without even a pair of underwear sitting in the mud. And that kind of a reality might be something dramatic like a pole shift. At that point, you've got $300 million, but it is absolutely meaningless. The guy who's sitting without any underwear in the mud may be crazy, but he may be much more suited to survival than the person that used to be incredibly wealthy within our power structure. And it's our power structure at an archetype level that we see changing.
Okay.
And the archetypes are very powerful. When we start getting in and seeing body parts and body part references coming up within the what we call the serendipitous mode of our processing, it really gets our attention because those are the most powerful archetypes we've got. And we've got nothing but those in this particular data stream that goes out about 36 months or so, but we're not really trusting it beyond 19. But it's nice to have a broad view and have a look.
You say you are getting a lot of them in there?
Correct. Meaning it's going to be a very powerful time relative to the archetypes that will be worked out. One way to think of it might be that it's going to be a time of perhaps social upheaval as we go through a lot and work out a lot of our collective karma.
Well, you're very kindly and gently trying to say that the merit is going to hit the circulating blades here.
Yes, indeed, and we're all standing right in front of it.
Yeah. There are going to be a lot of people that are going to die is the bottom line here. That's the general consensus. That's not fact and absolute, but that's what the data certainly suggests that we have a great potential to confront here. You mentioned Pakistan. Musharraf, of course, now charged with, I think the word was misappropriating, $700 million of U.S. aid, and God, that's probably the tip of the iceberg. The guy's probably worth a couple of billion. He's being pressured to leave even before the impeachment proceedings begin. So Pakistan is ready to really light off And they've got 100, who knows, 100 nukes laying around. This is a big issue, and there are, of course, plans, have been plans for years for American special forces to try to go in there and quote secure all of them. That's probably not going to happen. What is your data saying in the next 30 days? Now we've got this tumult in Georgia. You're looking at something around the 15th, possibly. You don't know Pakistan or not, but something else coming along.
No, 15th and 16th we'd had pretty much penciled in, because of the linguistics that are showing up, that we'd pretty much penciled it in for some kind of, quote, beginning of regime change in Pakistan.
Huh. All right, well, it's due. You're right. And how long ago did that begin to show up in your work?
Maybe 6 months, maybe 8 months, something
like that.
Well,
see?
You'd have to ask George Ure. That's pretty much his job, is to keep track of that kind of stuff, because I'm too buried heads deep in the daily interpretation.
That's fascinating, because Musharraf is really hanging by days now, at best guess. And it may turn out to be, what are we, the 12th tomorrow? The next 2-3 days, he's gone.
And then it well could be the case, yes.
Absolutely.
And that kind of sets us up for a period of tension. And bear in mind that, okay, we'd previously forecast that we were going to have some rather nasty economic times that were going to level out for approximately 2 months, maybe a week or two more than that, in the middle of summer. And it popped off on July 15th. We've had our economic sort of hiatus or revival or whatever since then. And so that's going to the end of that is going to coincide with a great deal of tension that's going to come back out politically. Which will be the spill-off a month later from whatever kind of, quote, revolution or rebellion begins within Pakistan. And
Pakistan could, in terms of an envelope, include Georgia, couldn't it?
I don't believe that this is direct that way. I think that that's another issue entirely. I think that relates to the Iran attack.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the naval strength, the projection. We're going to talk about the economy and this kind of respite we've been having in the downward spiral of the world financial enterprise in just a couple minutes when we come back. All right, let's talk about finances and the world economic crisis. And I think you heard Clif mention that their data has been talking about this. Respite is a good word, I guess. I don't know. Brief pause.
I believe so. It's entirely artificial, and it's achieved through the use of pumping in all kinds of emotional and other kinds of energy into the system.
Gold is tumbling, folks. Gold is dropping. I'm amazed. It's down to 807.80. Now, this is exactly what Clif's and George's data has been projecting for how many months?
For the economic stuff, I think we've had it in there since, I told George about it probably December of last year. So we've had it at least since
there
January.
You go. Okay.
Now the issue, too, is you have to understand this may be a very good and perhaps a last buying opportunity for gold at these prices.
No, that's absolutely true. You guys are both in on this and in commodities. Please talk more to that, because this is crucial.
Well, I was just going to say, I've got this really cool friend of mine who's, my dogs are going off in the background, probably raccoon or something, but I've got this really cool friend of mine who's an intuitive astrologer who does numbers. I choose not to do prices because we're doing emotional values weighted to gold. So we know that the emotional value on gold is going to double, but I'm not sure that that means the price is going to double, because it's a manipulated market.
You bet it is. Yeah, absolutely. All right.
But in any event, this friend of mine, Robert Hitt, who runs AstroEcon, had projected some time back. He and I had a conversation about 5 months ago, maybe, where he said, well, it'll go maybe down as low as 820, and that's the last on the springboard for the first set of doubling, because I had double show up 3 times relative to gold, coming in a relatively short succession.
We talked about this long ago, I think.
Yes.
Early on.
So we're almost there, and by his projection, of course, and many other people, I guess, it's going to go from the about 800 level and would go up to about 1600 in the next stage as we reach the next stage of what we're calling the dollar death. We've had this meme going for at least a year. Meme is a thought pattern or a consistent developing pattern of manifesting circumstances. And the doubling on the gold is actually relative, of course, to dollar destruction, not the other way around. The gold is no more valuable. The dollar is just worth less.
Got it.
And the digidollars make everything ever so much more difficult to track, especially since they're removing things like the M3 and trying to sever any kind of a link to any sort of inflationary data. However, I go out and I do shopping. It's awful hard to hide the inflationary aspect of, the price of milk.
You got to be blind.
Yeah, exactly.
First of all, you shouldn't be drinking milk, Cliff. It's not good for you.
No. I'm just bread, yogurt, eggs. It does not matter. Anything, chocolate, newspapers. It does not matter. If it's in that store that you're calling, your local grocery store, its prices are way
We're
up.
looking at 15% minimum inflation.
Oh yeah. I'm actually seeing that because I do a lot of shopping at a local food co-op, and I'm a vegetarian, and I eat a lot of legumes and so forth. I see less of it hitting at the lower end of the commodity, but still, any kind of processed foods, you're really starting to pay for it. But the issue is the overall degradation. That is actually an inflationary thing going on, but at the background, there is this huge deflationary wave going on. That deflationary wave is all this money being created, which is handed over to these people, and it's instantly disappeared in all these write-offs. and so it's like a deflationary back wave behind our hyperinflationary